What up? It's a Dropping Dimes podcast. I'm your host, Mark Veer. Welcome to episode number 22, Gasso Guys Part 2 with Tim Littlefield and Michael Timmins. Fellas, how we doing?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Well, good. It's playoff time, so everybody's energy is up a little bit.
It is best time of the year. So, Timmins, I'm glad you're feeling better. I know you weren't able to jump on the previous one, but for me, and we talked a little bit off pod, I kind of like the way that it's shifted. We've got two San Antonio people in the building talking about San Antonio basketball that we didn't get to touch on as much as I'd like. And I respect for them saying, hey, I think that's a question for Tim and Timmins. I'm like, cool. So we'll kind of dive into that. But before we get started, let's just do some intros. Let all the listeners know kind of who you are, what you do for the Gassos, and kind of your role and what you got going on basketball today. Tim, we'll start with you.
Obviously been in it for a number of years, been around in the game, 20 plus years between coaching and evaluating. So with that in itself, had the opportunity to join the Gasso staff, 4 years ago. Initially, it was with the Texas boys basketball staff for several years with them. So bringing some evaluating experience and being able to kind of allow the Gasso staff to kind of branch out a little bit more, with me covering, San Antonio, going to Austin a little bit and also Houston. So allowing those guys a little bit more flexibility to kind of get around and do what they do best.
Okay, thank you. Same question for you, Timmins.
Yeah, for me, I guess my role for Gas was the director of media. I started in 2015. I actually was doing clock and book at the Gasso when I was in college. So it was a easy transition. And I started with Texas Hoops Television, which was a media complement to the Gas. So I went to Blue and Sam. I was like, hey, y'all have such a big event. Why not have your own in-house media staff? So we kind of started there, growing that. And fast forward, this thing flies fast. 2025, I've been doing it for 11 years. Now kind of they've given me the keys to just make sure that Gasso continues to stay relevant with every new change there is, whether there's shoe circuits around and things like that. So I'm just always cognizant of the landscape of grassroots basketball. And I just want to make sure that there's always a place for Gasso and that it's fresh and relevant. So I'm continuing to do that, growing, learning every day. There's always something to learn about this space. And I'm turning into a man as we talk about it. I was a 23-year-old kid when I started. Now I'm 34. And I'm just, Tim's talking about he's has 20 years under his belt in this space. I have 10 or 11, but still, this thing's moving fast. So I'm excited to continue to learn and grow.
Love it. Yeah, I appreciate you both, again, coming on. Very credible guests. This podcast is flying. It's been so good. And again, just everybody wanted to give back to basketball and having basketball heads. So I'm looking forward to this podcast. A lot of great information. Unfortunately, we start with a loaded question. I've asked every single guest, and I think it's going to be nice coming from you two because you both played here and from here in San Antonio. You know a lot about San Antonio basketball. Littlefield, I'll start with you for this one. Where do you feel San Antonio basketball is today? And you can talk from grassroots to high school to AAU, however you want to, kind of dive into this one. But where do you feel we are today?
It has its peaks and valleys. When you start looking over a period of time, I'll go back, as early as childhood. When you look at organizations such I was affiliated with, with the San Antonio Celtics, you have Timmins that was involved with the Rohawks. You had the San Antonio Legends, and you had others, that came along. You had Gata, you had the Spurs, you had other people that were kind of coming along, during that time that really kind of filled it out. And it's had its peaks and valleys. And the reason why I say peaks and valleys is because there was a period of time when you would have a number of kids, going Division I, and then you also had some kids going Division II, Division III. And then as you move to 2025, the level where it's at, generally you're looking at, from a percentage standpoint, you're looking at maybe 1%, if not less, going Division I. Some of that is demographics. The reality of it is where you're actually at, the size that kids, come to the table with. Those are things that, college coaches are going to be, attracted to initially. So, when they have size and they have the playing ability. So you look at 2025 and the buzz that the SA Future, Antonio Brennan has kind of created for the area. Everybody's kind of focusing on that. But let's not forget about what's kind of happened previous to those guys to really kind of prelude into that. You had some really good hard work groups that have come along that have had, a lot of talented kids. You even had some independent groups, such as like the HD Toros that have had kids such as Brendan Wenzel. And then, you look at big fella that's playing for Texas right now. Apologize for drawing a blank on his name. Came up as an HD Toro. So, you've had organizations do some really good things. You had Prince, come up under the Legends, that's doing some really good things. And then, you have a number of other guys that have put up, or had some really incredible careers or are still playing right now. Rohawks, Jonathan Holmes, touch, with the Cleveland Cavaliers a little bit. You had Jordan Clarkson kind of finish up with those guys, had the opportunity to kind of coach him a little bit early on. So it has its peaks and valleys. It's going in the right direction. The only thing I will say is it may be a bit too much And what I mean when I say that, there are a lot of teams. When I talked about particular errors, there was only a few. So in order to make those teams, it got really, really competitive. And sometimes, organizations would create a second or third team, but it was justified because you had 20 good kids in a class. But I'm not creating a team just for Tim Littlefield's son to play because he's coaching in the organization, or creating a team for Mark Veer because he's the president of the organization. It's like, if those kids aren't good enough, I don't think that there's a space, and everybody's trying to create a space for those kids. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a space, but there's levels to it that I think we are incorporating together, and they don't belong together.
Yeah, it's a really good answer. I appreciate you touching on the history. A lot of people in San Antonio forget kind of where we came from. So I appreciate you touching on the back from the 2000s. All the organizations you talked about, Ben Hart up here played for the Spurs. So we talk often about it. We'll dive into, I wrote this down about, I think there's too many AAU teams, to your point. We'll get into that probably later in the podcast. But I appreciate the answer, Littlefield. Great. Timmins, same question for you.
Yeah, I think really just to follow up on what Tim's saying is the history and the peaks and valleys. Now, like back when I played with the Rohawks, there was no shoe circuits. So we were going all over Texas playing whoever it was, and no shoe teams were like aligned. Like there was just none of that. And now I feel like with San Antonio, when hard work was with Under Armour, the city felt like it was popping a little bit recently, just because there was just like, if you have a shoe brand in the city, well, that's going to attract more players. And the biggest thing was hard work was getting kids from outside of San Antonio to come down and play in San Antonio, which really doesn't happen anymore. San Antonio Future is great right now, but they have this community and this niche of San Antonio guys. So I think realistically, with no shoe team that's attracting out of, like, if you can start to get the Austin kids to come play in San Antonio, potentially a Houston kid and things like that, I think it will just start to create this new buzz. But yeah, the history, that's the thing, we can't forget about it. Jordan Clarkson and Andre Roberson were a year after me, two NBA guys, and then you go down the list, and there's just so much story tradition. And what that tells you is that the talent's here. Now, it may not be the realistic talent. Like, we don't have to have a whole bunch of D1 kids all over San Antonio, but I feel like there's a college for a lot of kids in the city. But when you talk about the amount of teams there are, I don't think a lot of people that are creating new teams are over here changing the blueprint and figuring it out for the college landscape. They may be doing it for the easy fix of having some success in their age division for a weekend, but it's not really moving the needle when we're talking about getting kids to college.
Yeah, it's a great point. So let me add this. We talked about it on some previous podcasts. I remember, maybe you guys can speak to this. I was at a referee camp. I go referee camps every summer, and we usually were up at the Gasso. And I remember keep walking in and out of the Duncanville Fieldhouse, and I just kept seeing so many San Antonio teams. I'm like, don't know that team. I just knew San Antonio on their jersey, or I recognized a kid or a parent. So I looked on the app, and I believe there was 19 San Antonio teams at a Gasso live period. Tim, for you, just being very honest, it's a podcast that we're having healthy conversations, real conversations. Do you feel that's a good look for San Antonio to have that many teams at a Gas on a live period? We're talking close to 200 kids that feel that they can play at that level.
So I think if we ever could get to a point where you had 7 or 8 guys out of those 19 teams, where you say, okay, this kid here, this kid here on this particular team, now you could potentially go out and be relevant. Now, I get it. You want to kind of spread the wealth. You want to give everybody an opportunity. Everybody can't play point guard on a team that's probably already loaded, so you want to go and create another team. I get that. If there's 2, 3, maybe even 4 teams that are credible, now it makes sense. So we go back to the competition part of it. Are we trying to move past that and just putting a team in an event? Or are we really putting kids in position to be competitive to potentially play at the next level?
Yeah, I agree. An add-on question is Mo from the Raiders talked about we've lost local competition in town. Booman even said it as well, right? That he feels he's kind of a problem that Hallmark don't play a lot in San Antonio. Back in the day, everybody would play against each other in town. Even when I got to the factory with my guys, we had healthy local competition. I am a little nosy. I go and look at these tournaments in town, and there's a lot of blowouts, or a lot of teams do not play, or they play up, or they go out of town. Do you feel that San Antonio needs to, at all levels, grassroots all the way up to the high school level, need to have more local rivalries and more competitive games here that can, probably, help the environment and culture?
A step further, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'll take it a step further. You also have certain organizations that won't play certain organizations, with the fear of, because a player came from that organization, or a fear of losing a kid, back, during the time period, that Mike's talking about, Let's even go back to like when the Rohawks used to throw events. It was with the intent of creating the best matchup. And so you had local representation from multiple organizations. And, you mentioned what the Next Level Raiders are doing. He does an outstanding job putting kids in the situation. You look at Gavino Ramos. At one point in time, Gavino Ramos was getting some Division I buzz. He made an intelligent decision. He made a business decision for him to be able to go out and play 3 to 4 years at a high level, doing what he's doing over at St. Ed's right now, just to try to, put a tidbit, there. But at the same time, we're talking about a kid who's coming out of an organization, low profile, but having an opportunity on a big stage to be able to play against some of the big opponents. But you have certain people that won't participate in certain events with other teams, or other teams, may have conflicting schedules. I get that. But at the same time, there's got to be a commitment collectively to say, hey, you know what? We're going to stay home. We're going to hash this out. And I think the younger groups are doing that. When you see some 6th, 7th, and 8th grade matchups, you see that. So you start to see who kids are setting themselves apart. But then as the kids get older, they start to disperse and go multiple directions. Some of it is a detriment to their recruiting as well. Sometimes they go too far, and there's no visibility to really kind of account for them.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay. Add-on question for you, Timmins, is we've only have one potentially 2025 kid. He's the only one going Division I as of now. That Kingston's the only kid going right now D1 in the class. Yes. Okay. And we may have a few more. I'm not sure. But the question is one, is that an issue for San Antonio? Or is it that everybody's chasing D1 in San Antonio? And like to your point, you just talked about G over at St. Ed's. He just had senior night. Made a very smart decision. I was just at his house the other day talking to his dad. He's going to stay at Colorado for 4 years, having a great career over there. Do we feel like San Antonio won? So 2 questions to it. One, do you feel we need to have possibly more Division I kids here? Or, add-on question, do kids probably chasing a level they're not maybe ready for?
You're the level you are. And what I mean by that is, this is not just a San Antonio thing. This is everywhere. You can go to bed at night and dream about being a D1 player, but you're going to wake up and you're going to be graduating college and being unsigned. The quicker these kids start to realize what level they are, and guess what? The level you are is the level that the college coach is. And I don't think college coaches or D1s are missing kids at that high of a clip to be like there's a lot of just D1s flying around. Now, don't get me wrong. Could Gavino transfer right now and go play D1 as a grad transfer? Yeah, he's talented enough, but there's just levels and there's time to that. I think there's a college for a lot of kids out here, and they just got to stop thinking about levels. And if San Antonio kids just started going and playing college all over the place and planting their seed, it would benefit them and the next generation coming up, whether that's NAIA schools in Kansas. Matthew Soto's playing really well for my alma mater, UT Dallas. Well, guess what? UT Dallas and all those teams in that region are going to see, oh, this Matthew Soto kid. What else does San Antonio have down there? It's a trickle-down effect if you just get these kids in college. And the biggest thing about me, when I played, I realized very quickly, whatever level I thought I wanted to be, I'm a D3 basketball player. I played Division I JUCO, but I didn't have a jump shot. I could guard. But once you go to a program and buy into that, like we're all human. Once you buy into playing for a team, you're locked in for that team, and you're not worried about the level anymore. So I tell a lot of these kids, just go get involved with the program and buy in and you'll be better for it. But I don't think that there's just so many just underrated D1 guys that aren't getting a D1 opportunity because D1's a multi-million-dollar industry. If there's D1 guys in San Antonio, Josiah Jones just got a Kansas State offer. Josiah Jones from Harlem is a D1 guy. They're coming down. They know who's a D1 player. I think internally, yes, most parents and kids think that they are D1 because that's the level you want to start at, and you're not willing to be real with yourself. But I don't think D1 guys are just out here missing on D1 kids just because it's San Antonio, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Great answer. I also feel in San Antonio, we have all levels down here, right? We got the Lake, Red River Conference. We also now have Texas A&M San Antonio. Division III will be Division II, I believe, going to go into the Lone Star. Then we have Trinity, Division III, St. Mary's, Division II, and then it goes all the way up. We got UTSA, so we have all levels here. I think San Antonio is a great, opportunity for all kids to play at all those levels. Littlefield, what are your thoughts on that?
I love how Mike opened up with you are what you are. Levels are dictated by what you do against certain people. When you look at Kingston being that, he has performed at a high level as early as 2021, playing against some high-level guys. SA Future went out, hosted some events, also participated in some events. that kind of dictated that along the way. So there was just a constant movement of the needle for him as far as matching the intensity, matching the level of play against a lot of those guys. It was only a matter of time. I think for him, from a development standpoint, the more he was around those guys that are elite, the higher his game became. And so it was just more of him kind of doing that. Others need to probably get to that from a workout skill development standpoint, getting in the gym with guys who are college development or already there and kind of ramp up where they're at. If they are aspiring to be at that level, you got to go and compete at that level. And it's okay to struggle, because if you're struggling in that environment, you'll say, working out over at the factory or somewhere like that, where they're in there and they're getting their grind on for an hour and a half, just trying to figure it out. That's fine. But at the end of the day, like Mike was saying, you have to make business decisions. You have to go where you're appreciated. You have to go where you actually fit. Go to a program that appreciates you and that you can go in and fit and play at a high level at, not just one that you can go in and get a minute or two in a third of the season. If that, you go and look at a kid like Camden Ross, who graduated from Steele. Nobody even knew who this kid was. Nobody even knew who he was. That line was 40-10 the other night at Shriner at a Division III school. Could he probably go up a level or two? Absolutely. Probably could have done that 2 years ago where he was getting inquiries. You go where you fit and you try to be in a situation where you can dominate or you can play at a high level as long as possible. I think others try to mirror what others are doing. And let's just use Kingston for an example. Kingston is a once-in-a-generational type kid. So I'm not going to say, okay, I want my kid to be like Kingston. You're not going through the things you're doing, and God didn't bless you with the things that he's been blessed with. The things that he's been blessed with makes him a special talent that college coaches covet. If you're not that, then you have to find what you're really, really good at and what level that exists in, and then work hard to maintain a level of play there. We've had level of players. Jay-Sean Jackson was a two-year player of the year. Mm-hmm. He's at Lamar. There's nothing wrong with that level. Then you have others that were players of the year or in conversation for it that didn't pan out there. And so, like I said earlier, as far as the peaks and valleys, there's high. You can go high, you can go low, you can go Division II, and those aren't bad levels. People have to really stop discrediting what those levels are, because you have some really, really good talent at all of those levels.
Oh yeah, I just had a high school coach She played Division I and went to go watch a D3 game for the first time, women's college. I get to work D3, D2, D1. I get to see all those levels, and I tell people all the time, I don't know why y'all be sleeping on D3 basketball. Well, they went to go watch the game, and I talked to her. She was like, I don't think a lot of my girls could even play Division III. Yep. Keep telling people, man. I just tell people all the time. I tell parents every day, if you feel your kid can go play college, just go watch Trinity down the street. And then you let me know what you think about that. Could you see your athlete playing? And both. Cam and Jimmy do a great job at Trinity. That entire university, every sport. It's funny. My son go watch soccer games out there. I'm like, Division III. This ain't no joke. And Timmins, you doing it too, right? You said that.
I played at UT Dallas, and I tell people all the time when they hit me with I'll just, if it don't work out, I'll just go play D3. And I'm like, not at my D3, not at that conference. There might be a D3 for you, but it's not the one that you think's right down the road at a Trinity. And now you look at it, when I played, Shriner and TLU couldn't do anything with us. But now I'm looking at Shriner and TLU as real, legit squads. Trinity's always going to be in the mix for being a top 25 team in the country. So when you're just looking at 3 teams regionally in San Antonio that are D3, you go over there, watch a game and be like, yeah, you watch Camden and he goes for 40-10. Let me see if you really think that you can just pop on in here and hoop. But that's just what you don't know. And I think that, I know last week you had Ryan Macedon, and he does a great job with Recruiting Simplified. And he says put recruiting in your own hands too, which means go learn about levels. Don't just take what you think you know about D3 because it's not scholarship, so they're not good at all. These are kids paying because they're not good at basketball. Now go pop in, watch how practice is done, watch the energy of a high-level Mary Hardin Baylor game. Those are there's dudes everywhere. So you gotta, because once you start to see that, then your idea of what level you think you are, it's 2 things. What level you think you are will change once you see a level that you're probably not as good at. And then that opens up everything. Because if you think you're D or you think you're D2, then you go see a D3 and you're like, wow, these guys are really good. Well, that opens up your mindset just to being open to every level of basketball. A lot of these kids just think they can walk on a D3 campus, and that's just not how it works. College basketball is very, very hard. So any opportunity you get is a blessing.
Yeah, love it. Great nuggets, great information. People listening, pay attention. I know it's a simple message, but
Yeah.
I think people get caught up.
And don't get me wrong, like parents don't know a lot, kids don't know anything. So it's not like, hey, it's always gonna be like this. When I was a kid, I probably was like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like, who knows? I went to Division I JUCO at Angelina. I didn't know that I was gonna be one of the only Texas kids with playing with teammates from New York, Africa, California. Some kids had children. They were playing for their lives. I'm just a kid from Judson that just went 36-2 and thinking that, oh yeah, we're the real deal. Then I go out there, I'm like, these guys are playing for something more than I'm playing for. So I gotta either lock in and fit into this process or I'm not gonna work. So you don't know what you don't know. I mean, but I was prepared playing with the Royal Hawks. I was prepared playing for Mike Wacker, so I fit in and figured it out. But I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was like, oh, I'll go play JUCO because I want another opportunity to play higher than D3. Then I start to figure out, okay, I don't got a real jump shot. I'm 5'10". That's just a blessing for a 5'10" kid with no jump shot to get a college opportunity. Let me cut ties. I'm not going D1. Let me go to D3, high level education, get my degree, and live to see another day. I'm not going to be bragging about my stats or anything like that, but I wouldn't trade all those experiences for the world. Playing at JUCO made me the man I am today, and that was just 1 year, and I had to figure it out. But yeah, you just got to take these experiences and learn. You get in wherever you are, fit in, learn about it, and at the end of the day, like whatever level you played at, like you're gonna be proud of it. And 10 years later, it's a blessing.
Yeah, love it. Appreciate you sharing that story too. That's good stuff. Everyone I talk to that played JUCO ball, they always say it ain't for everybody. And
It's
to
true.
your point, it changes you, right? I don't know how many people I've talked about. If it's 1 year, 2 years, whatever they play at JUCO, it changes them and makes them a better person when they come out.
And think about this rule where people are like, oh well, JUCO doesn't count against your clock. I'm like, that don't mean you're a JUCO kid. Like, so some of these kids that are like, well, I'm just gonna go JUCO now because of the rule. I mean, at the same time, you got to be you got to be different, and you got to be ready to hack it at JUCO because it's just different. That's how I
It's
describe
brutal.
it. Yeah.
It's brutal.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. I actually have that on the outline about the transfer portal and then also the JUCO 2-year rule. I know it's still an injunction. I don't know. I know it got approved for 1 year, but so let's talk about high school kids getting recruiting. Man, it's tough. Let's be real. It's really hard now for high school kids. All these rules that are coming up, extra years, COVID years, eligibility, NILs, the transfer portal, the JUCO extra years, and all this. So, Littlefield, I'll start with you. Talk to us, educate everybody about what's going on with those rules, and then how hard it is now for high school kids to get recruited.
It's extremely difficult without everything else involved. So the few deals that you just talked about, from an NIL deal, from a portal, from the new JUCO rule that is still pending. All of those are not even factors when you come down to the fact that players or coaches want to get older. I was sitting up listening to a podcast with Kelvin Sampson the other day, and he was talking about just 2 or 3 years ago how Kentucky had the #1 recruiting class in the country. They had 5 or 6 5-stars that had signed with those guys. They didn't even make the tournament that year. Then he talked about Duke, who was the second best recruiting class that came out, and he talked about the fact that they had 3 or 4 guys. I think they were first or second round casualty in the tournament, all because they were 18 and 19 years old. So the fact that colleges want to get older already make it very, very difficult because they're looking for the next best older kid. So when you start talking about the JUCO level that we just touched on, they're looking at those levels first because they can go out and go get a mature kid that's coming out of JUCO at 19, 20, 21 years of age, depending on what age he graduated from high school at, and plug that guy in. And then they're looking at it from a maturity standpoint. Can someone really tolerate being away from home and being coached up tough? So they look at those different dynamics. So they want a more mature kid. So when you start looking at 17 or 18, you have to be exceptionally special to get an opportunity to even crack the lineup, even for that matter, get any time at the level,
It's real. It's tough, but we don't want high school kids or parents to get discouraged. But it's real conversations, and like you said, they got to get to work, right? They got to get their body right, take care of all that. And we've talked on many podcasts about kids, especially in San Antonio. Let's be real; they don't take care of their bodies, don't eat good, they don't train right. So this is great information for them to take with them. And yeah, I appreciate all that stuff. And you touched on it, Timmins, about media, social media, and then also San Antonio media. So I know you do a lot of that stuff. You do a lot of filming for the Gasso. Your stuff is phenomenal. But let's just talk about media in San Antonio. And I don't care how you tackle it. I don't know if you know this. I got in trouble with my thumbs and I talked about in the last podcast. And this is all very new to me. So again, what I learned from the Gasso guys is you guys meet a lot and you're trying to get better. I'm also always trying to better myself and get more educated on many different aspects of the game. So this is something I'm not very educated on in regards to video guys and social media and how it all works. But there was a kid here in San Antonio that scored 27 on John Jay, played at Southside, I believe. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. You know, he had a great game. Good. And there was a video on it and they lost by 59. So me, you know, old school guy is like, what? I don't understand this. I don't understand why you would post something when you lost by 59. I got a lot of heat. Like, you got to take that down. I said, I'm sorry. Right. And I talked to the media guy. I was not trying to be disrespectful. Obviously, Littlefield, you didn't hear about this. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful at all. And I did. I apologize. This is on me and I'll get better. But this is your space. This is something that you're very credible. Your stuff is great. You know, there's a lot of media people out there now. So however you want to tackle the question, educate everybody how this stuff kind of works, social media, and also the kind of the video stuff as well.
Yeah, we just talked about the whole time right here. We've been talking about the landscape. A lot of the landscape is based off the exposure you get, and a lot of it's luck through media. The first thing I'll say, and I've crafted some tweets in my drafts on X platform that could probably get me into some trouble. But the biggest thing that I'll say is the barrier for entry for being media is lower than ever. Realistically, like, and I'll start with living in Dallas. Dallas has a basketball culture. A lot of media are started just by being fans. And what ends up happening is their dads and parents took them to games. Now they're adults. Now they're going to those same games, those same programs. And then very quickly you realize, oh, I can say one thing about a kid on social media, and now 10 people will follow me. And now 20 people. And all of a sudden you have a couple thousand followers just talking basketball. And there's all those type of people all over Dallas and Houston areas. So that's just, it's a trickle effect. Realistically, me and Tim don't know. I mean, we have some reasons to think we know more about this space. You know, we're more consistent working in it. But my take I don't think my take's better than the next person's take. Therefore, I'm not holding myself in high regard. This is a made up space. Media is just a made up space. I mean, think about when I played, there wasn't people all over. And so all the guys that were going D1, D2 going to college, we all still played college basketball without media. So I think the barrier for entry is lower than ever. I think media is relevant, but there's just, starting with San Antonio media, the difference between San Antonio media and DFW and Houston media, and even Austin now, is San Antonio is a really, really big city, and people consider it a small market, but it's just not. It's one of the biggest cities in the country. So there are some really, really good media people here, but to cover the city with any type of buzz, there's just not enough numbers. And in the Dallas areas, I'm seeing younger and younger videographers. And videographers, let's start there. Videographers most likely are going to be your high school kids, your young kids. They're getting younger and younger now. I have a 15-year-old on staff, and he's great, and that's why he's on staff. But think about it. There's no bills. You go back to your room that your parents are like, you have no bills, no responsibilities. So now you're just going to games and covering games and just being around, and it's fun. Those kids are the ones, you know, putting out narratives of, oh, he's the best player and so. Not the most healthy thing, but there's still exposure, and exposure generates buzz. And now there's a storyline. There's not a lot of those in San Antonio, just the ones that may annoy you, Mark. Like, there's not enough annoyances in San Antonio. Because if there were, it would start more questions. There's good media guys that are covering basketball, but it's just not enough to generate real buzz that's going to go past locally, regionally, and to get to the statewide level. In Dallas, where we are, there's fans of basketball that are just going to watch a game and tweet, and they just do it every weekend, and they're there. And they have their real jobs. They don't really care about. They're not trying to help any kids. They're just seeing what they see. That's media. There's a parent that's going to be on the baseline filming their kids, and then all of a sudden they just are posting all the time. There's just buzz all the time in Dallas, and whatever high level you think, if you think Gasso's high level media, that's fine. But there's also 14-year-olds filming the top players all over the place and showing video. And video, it lies for sure, but at the same time, I mean, what you see really happened. Like, the ball's going in the basket. It doesn't matter if it was 2 for 15. You can see the way a kid's moving and things like that. So it's relevant. Like, you see what you see, and there's just so many more opportunities to storytell. And that's what I think San Antonio is lacking, storytelling. You know, David Hinosa and my San Antonio, he does a great job down here, but he's not a storyteller. He's just what it is right in front of you. There's just a lot of, this is what it is, this is what happened, opposed to more people that are willing to storytell and, like, talk about Kingston's story, like, talk about Brennan, like, talk about what Taylor and Todd did up at the Dallas Hoop Fest. Talk about what John Jay's doing that can score with anybody. There's relevant scenarios and stories that you can tell in San Antonio. Like, there's teams that know about John Jay up in Dallas and Houston. Like nobody wants to play them. I mean, even think about down in Corpus. I mean, Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial. Maybe I'm biased just because my career is to cover the state of Texas, so I'm supposed to know all these things. But there are relevant storylines in San Antonio all the time. Ethan Moreno had 50 at South San. Like if in Dallas, if Ethan Moreno lived in Dallas, there would be leeches of 14 and 15-year-olds going to his game to be like, that kid had 50, he's gonna get me clicks. So even if it is about clicks, Ethan Moreno doesn't care if that media kid is there just to get clicks. It's still relevant exposure for him. And to follow up on your situation where, the kid had a good game and they got blasted. Now, if I'm that kid, I need that film out for sure. I need that. I mean, it is what it is, but the storytelling on that is, hey, took a tough loss. I'm trying to get better. I don't know what the narrative, or I don't know how it was positioned, but you can recruit yourself even in losses. Not everybody's going to be blessed to be on a good team or have a good night, but if you had a good game, you have to be able to storytell that in a positive way, so that you, like somebody like you, Mark, may look at it and be like, okay, he understands that they got blasted. He's just trying to figure out a way to get recruited and some exposure on the side. Storytelling and setting narratives, opposed to being like, not even mentioning that they got blasted. If I had 25 and we lost, it's like, hey, tough loss today, trying to get better. Our whole team continues to work. Here are my stats, here are my highlights. Just so that you're like, okay, I get it. I get it. Yeah, they did lose. I'm seeing these highlights. But to just be like, I need to throw these highlights away because we got blasted by 50. We talk about it's hard for high school kids to get any exposure anywhere these days. You got to figure out a way to make those highlights positive for you and set a positive narrative.
Yeah. And that's what I keep hearing. So I appreciate it. I will be better. Everybody, San Antonio, I will be better. I need to be better. So I thank you. Right. I appreciate it. Again, a space I don't know about. And positive or negative, it is what it is. You've just educated everybody how this space works. So to your point, kids are going to have to use it for whatever. I do appreciate you touching on the narrative. I think if that the storytelling is better, then maybe the culture can maybe change here a little bit in San Antonio.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll say this. I went down last year for Brennan John Jay. I drove to Dallas, and I went to Judson. So I take the trip from Universal City all the way to Brennan, and I'm excited. It's Brennan Jay, and Jarius Jackson and Cameron Garza are starting to emerge themselves as real dudes at this time last year. Kingston Fleming's emerging himself as the number one player in the state of Texas. Nobody in the gym. So realistically, when I talk about the fact that media is a made up space, if that gym's packed, it doesn't matter if I'm not a media person, if I'm an accountant and I'm watching the game. But I mean, we're all on social media. 50 people tweet about Kingston Flemings that aren't media people. It's still going to do the same thing. There's nobody that needs to be an official media person to get a message off. If that gym's packed on both sides, I mean, Jarius Jackson had a really, really big game. If somebody tweets about Jarius Jackson, and it's trickle down effect. If more people were at these games, the numbers are just going to be the fact that there's just going to be more buzz on social media. And more buzz and packed gyms means that more kids are going to want to pick up a camera. I see football down in San Antonio does a pretty good thing. I see more videographers at football games. So I think there's just a culture more so than the media. I think if the culture and the fans of basketball was more prevalent in San Antonio, I think, because a lot of these young media people, like, if they're going to continue to do it, they want to see a reward, and rewards are clicks, views, engagement with their stuff. If there's no buzz around the culture, then a lot of people aren't going to just start from scratch and want to get involved in this.
All right, this is great. I'm learning so much about this space, so I appreciate you educating me. All right, let's close on some Q&As, all right, from some listeners. First one for you, Timmins. Just real quickly, tell us, everybody, what Gasso Next Gen is. I know that's kind of your baby.
We started Gasso Next Gen, but it was behind the idea 3 years ago where I want to continue to make sure Gasso is relevant, fresh. And I feel like we do a great job. If a family, a player knows about Gasso, they're going to understand that this relationship is a 4-year relationship with us. So I want to get in front of it early, but not too early. I know Tim and I, we've all had conversations about how early do we do this thing. But to put in perspective, we just did our first 2027 rankings a couple weeks ago. So that means we've watched them play as freshmen and sophomores before we even put a number next to their name. So we do a due diligence. So when you see all these young 4th, 5th, 6th graders getting out here ranked, I'm like, some of those kids didn't even want to go to the game that morning. Mark, y'all are parents. Y'all know it. Like, it just, how can you realistically rank? So Gasso Next Gen was a chance to get in front of from the 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade to start to build a real relationship with them. So I created the Gasso Next Gen camp just to generate buzz, get them to know who Gasso is, get them to understand that, hey, Gasso is a relevant brand in this space that's going to be with you for all 4 years. Not only do we put on high school events, and not only do we do summer events, but we're covering you at every level of basketball. When Gasso gets in front of people, we're not the most sexy brand, and we don't try to be. Nobody in Gasso is trying to be somebody they're not. But we know we're relevant. We know at the purest form of what this space is, that's who we are. So I want to get in front of the younger generation so they know kind of how this space works. Mass does a great job. We'll do recruiting stuff with them. So my camp's March 2nd. We have some of the top players from the 8th graders, freshmen, and sophomores. And we have that Gasso Next Gen camp that kind of starts off things March 2nd that will propel these families and just kind of get them to understand what this space is.
Add-on question, is this invite-only camp?
No, it's not. It's not. You can sign up right now. We have, as of recording this, 150 kids have signed up. We're taking around 200, and it'll be at Duncanville Fieldhouse on March 2nd. But it's open to everyone. And I'm roster building right now, and we have some kids from San Antonio coming up that I'm excited about. And that's the biggest thing. If you want to know what this space looks like, get out of your comfort zone. I know that's a drive up 35, and I make it pretty frequently up and down, so I get it. But if you want to go see where you really stack up against March 2nd, if you're a freshman, 8th grader, or sophomore, and you live in the San Antonio area, come up there just to see if just to see. It doesn't necessarily mean that the speed of the game is going to be different, but I want to see what your perspective is after you see that. Because I feel like it's very, very important to see what basketball looks like all over the state of Texas. Because if you think you're the guy. You may be the guy somewhere, but there's plenty of places where you're not the guy anymore. And the quicker you can find that out, the quicker you'll get to work and really be realistic with your game and yourself.
100%. Send me the link, Timmins, and I'll throw it in the description when it goes live. Yeah, good stuff. Next question for you, Littlefield. What's the first thing you look at for when you're evaluating a player?
Depends on position. The first thing that stands out for me, like we talked about a little bit earlier when we were talking about recruitable type kids, their size. Does it translate? I want to see their size. I want to see how they move. If it's a point guard, I'm looking at his IQ, looking at his feel, how he's handling, what his pace looks like, the decisions he's making, the frequency he's making those decisions. Even assist to turnover ratio, how is he impacting the game from that perspective? Shooters shoot. So I want to see those guys, if they're coming off screens, I want to see the frequency and efficiency that those guys are shooting the ball with. If it's somebody that's passed some really good size and play inside, I want to see their footwork. I want to see their hands. I want to see them rebound the ball out of their area. I want to see their motor. For everybody, really, their motor, is the one that's going to stand out. We talked about guards. I want to see those guys really get out and defend, the majority of the floor. Some can defend 94 feet, some can't. But I definitely want to see you stay in front of your guy. If you think you are a player or a particular position, you have to be able to defend it. That's first and foremost. And then lastly, I want to see how they impact the game. What are they doing without the basketball a lot of the times? I was talking to a couple of people before, and they brought up a really, really good statistics. 95% of the time, you're going to play the game without the ball. So what are you doing to impact the game during those time periods are the most important. So that really kind of helped me grow in this field as well. So I really trying to look at those components as far as what they're doing. How are they defensively? How do they rebound? Are they talking? Some people really don't understand the value of communicating with their teammate out on the floor, whether it be on the offensive end and especially on the defensive end. Well, I know sometimes organizations don't teach it, don't talk about it, but you see a lot of times and their brain farts that happen even at the highest level. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to communication, the fact that you didn't realize that you were in weak side and you weren't where you needed to be. I mean, that type of stuff to me is mind-blowing, but it happens. So the more a kid communicates out on the floor, the more it stands out to me.
Love it. Great answer. You can both answer this next one, but Timmins goes first. The question is, most undervalued skill in today's game?
Making the extra pass or just pitching it ahead. I think when you're talking about an undervalued skill like that, it might not be the first thing that pops, but if I'm just trying to find reasons to fall in love with you even more, and I see you do that, it's just, it matters. It matters a lot. If for college coaches, college coaches preach all the time, get the ball, especially the old school ones, are the ball goes faster if you pass it than dribbling it. And they do that all the time. So when a college coach is evaluating a point guard, yeah, sure, how does he run the show? How does he do in the pick and roll? But an undervalued skill that he doesn't have to teach is if you see making the extra pass or pitching it ahead. Pitching it ahead is just huge for college coaches. They love it so much. And it may not be the sex. You think a college coach wants to see you score 20. No, I promise you, they want to know that you're going to pitch it ahead, especially a team that wants to play fast. So making the extra pass, whether it's you think you can shoot this shot, but there's a guy right in the corner, and it looks so visually appealing too. That one more when a game's really going well, and that one more, that person that made that one more pass, that's a really good pass, and you're gonna get at least Gasso. We like that type of stuff,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it may not be the sexiest thing, but that one more pass or pitch in the head really matters.
I
Love
love
it.
it. Yeah, that's Ryan had a similar answer, and I said the same thing to him. I just love simple plays. I think
Yeah.
today's game, a lot of kids have got away from that, just making the right plays and simple plays. Great stuff.
Because real quick, simple plays will make a college coach stay in love with you. Once they. The thing is this: you can do something really good that will make them look down at the roster book and be like, "I like that kid." And if you can, once you got them, you can lose them quick, but you can keep them around by just making the easy, simple plays. You try to whip a backdoor pass that's not there. It's like, oh, okay, now you got to go do something else. So the more simple plays you can get, the better.
Yeah, great point. Littlefield, you got a different answer?
Mid-range.
Boy,
Love to see kids shoot and hit the mid-range. Everybody's not Steph Curry. And even then, though, if you are a really, really good shooter, defensively at the next level, guys are much longer, bigger, more athletic. They're chasing you off that line. So now where do you create an opportunity for yourself? It's ripping through. It's 1-2 dribble pull up, one dribble pull up, getting in that space that's open before you get to those 6'9", 7-footers that are swatting it in the bleachers or off the backboard, creating fast break opportunities for their team, going the opposite direction with it. So, you got to be able to hit the mid-range because it puts so much pressure on the defenses. Now I got to figure out if I have to extend to go and cover that guy out there, if I'm underneath the basket, I'm creating other opportunities for my teammates as well. So people don't understand that. So kids that hit the mid-range, I love it.
I love it too. You said simple plays. You said mid-range. Yeah, I don't see kids real good out of closeout. A lot of bad decision making out there. So I like those answers. Great. All right. Last one, then we'll go to quick hitters. What are some potential red flags for a prospect that may not pan out for their future?
Their body language. I mean, body language is everything. When you talked about earlier, you asked the question, what am I looking at? I'm also looking at how that kid deals with adversity. You're going to deal with some adversity, but I'm also not just going to look at that component. Sometimes I'm looking at the sideline, how you're going to interact with that coach. Because if that coach calls you over and he's talking to you, hey, you can get here, or you can make this read here, or you can make this play here, there, and the other. How are you absorbing that coach? Are you looking in the stands to see what your mom and dad are talking about? Are you looking over to see who's videoing the game? Are they really making you look bad? Are you more worried about that? Or you focus on the moment itself where you're getting coached up and now you're buying into what your coach is telling you, giving your coach eye contact, so those are things there. And then people that are looking constantly in the bleachers, parents behind the benches talking, getting kids' attention. So the kid is more focused on what his parent is saying. Those are deterrents because you're not going to be able to do that at any college, regardless of what level you go to. If you take that act and you go, or even for that matter, if they even decide to recruit you and you do that, you're out of there. So, I mean, those are things from a coachable standpoint. I want to see you be coachable.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I would say, similar. These are all intangibles, but I would say emotional front runners. And what I mean by that is you turn into a different type of player when things are going well for you. Like I see kids so many times will get a bucket, start to clap, and then want to pick up 94 feet. But you ain't picked up 94 feet all game long. So where's that same energy?
What do you call it? Emotional front runners? I like that. I'm going to write that down.
Emotional front runner.
I like that. Okay.
It's the kid that wants to, and we're all guilty of it. It's the kid that wants to clap when he hits a shot. And he's like, let's go, like to the team. Like I want true leaders are like, let's go from the get-go, picking up 94 feet, clapping and cheering themselves on. I get that we've all hit a bucket and we feel really good about ourselves and it changes. But if you're going to pick up 94 feet after you get a bucket and you flex on the opponent and you're right there in his face, beating his grill the next possession off a timeout. And that translates everywhere. When you're feeling good, I've seen it. I've had teammates in college that when they have a bad game and the next day we got to go to the weight room, the approach, they're going in there with a different approach. But when they have a good game, everybody's good. Oh, I'm going to like lifting and doing conditioning. It's just if nobody's consistent anymore. It's based off what have you done. If you're consistent with your approach, good game, bad game, good possession, bad game. And going back to what we talked about a little earlier with what are some small things that people look for. At Gasso, we have so many games going on. Like the odds that we get to watch a full game is the same thing with college coaches. You have to treat every possession like a coach gets one possession to see you. So just being more consistent in that approach, a lot of kids aren't. When things are rolling well for them, they're gonna act like things are rolling well. But when they're not doing so well, like how do you reset and go make things go well for you with your play and your actions? And I just think too many emotional front runners is just not sustainable.
Love it. Great answers. All right. Well, I appreciate you both. Let's close on some quick hitters. So the first one is ISO bucket or extra pass.
Oh, see, now just in that, the iFilm hoopers are starting to pop up a little bit now. Give me ISO bucket just because I know that everybody can make the extra pass. Not everybody can get an ISO bucket, so give me ISO bucket.
Which one you got?
I got to have a bucket as well. I mean, it's no doubt about it. At the end of the day, I want to see a guy. Game is on the line. Here we go.
There's could be folks in playoffs that's starting to jack threes just because
I
they're
know.
like, hey,
Y'all too.
Gasso said get you a bucket.
We also said how.
Yeah, you did. All right, next one. Super pool or straight bracket play?
Super pool. I mean, matchups are everything, you know, because you can have some unfortunate things where bracket play, you have some really good teams have to go left in the bracket while everybody else goes right. So super pool as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. Super pool. You may want to see a build up to what the bracket may look like at the end, but there's just so much parity in brackets that give me super pool so we can guarantee those matchups.
Yeah, love it. Next one. Any basketball icon you could go to dinner with?
So I got a quick story. So I'm from San Antonio, and now I know I'm getting old because now all of a sudden my favorite player ever, Tim Duncan, has a son. And Tim Duncan's son and the San Antonio Rhythm come to the Gasso. And I mean, that's my guy. Tiger Woods and Tim Duncan are like my two favorite athletes of all time. But now I'm over at the Gasso as an event director with the Gasso logo. And we're at the swag, and he comes up the stairs and he's like, hey, there's a lot of people. I just want to watch my son. Can I watch it up here? I'm like, yeah. I'm shaking though. I'm like, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Here's the chair. You know, we have waters and stuff back here. Just let me know if you need anything. And the whole time he's sitting up there, I'm like, I just want to go over and tell him, hey, I've written so many biographies about you in elementary school, but I'm just trying to keep it real G. But like, think about your hero sitting right there. And it's just like, and I have to be so professional. So if one day I get to go sit down with Tim Duncan and tell him that story, that would be the guy, the iconic figure, because Tim Duncan was my childhood.
Love it. Littlefield, you?
Man, that's a tough one. That's a really good question. Basketball icon. I'm gonna probably go.
Yeah, you got to go way back, huh?
Probably go Kobe.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. All right, next one. See if no one has jumped on my bandwagon on this one. Let's see if we can. So Timmins, favorite basketball movie? Still waiting.
I love Glory Road so much.
Forget about it. I'm gonna edit that out. All right. I was not expecting that at all. Littlefield, go before I turn it off. That is
Hey, dang. It's Gasso, baby. You know what you're gonna get, man. So I was gonna say Glory Road as well.
Go for y'all.
You were for real?
What? Yes,
Yeah,
that's
go
why
ahead.
I was responding like you took my answer. But I would say a really close second is going to be Coach Carter.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the other Gasso guys picked that. Yeah.
What's
Tim,
yours?
I got kind of clowned on it because the editing is bad. So you may appreciate this. Your editing would be, they probably need to hire you for the movie. But for me, it's Above the Rim. I love that movie.
I don't hate that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I just love that movie.
I mean,
Flip was
yeah.
my dude, man. I love Flip in that movie. I love Bernie Mac. That's my dude,
Can't
man.
change what we were, baby. Can't change what we were, baby.
Yeah,
Is Love and Basketball a basketball movie?
it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep that in so that I can get some people to be like, okay, all right, he has a little bit of the culture too, not just me Glory Road.
Okay, I'll squeeze that in. All right, two more. Timmins, one rule you could change in the game today.
I mean, I know everybody's gonna say it, but let's go shot clock.
Yeah, that's
I
what
mean, I know a
England
lot of
said.
people
Yeah.
are gonna say that, but I mean, just more possessions to show really what your skill set is and make the IQ will just go up.
Yep. And I said, we got shot clocks here at the factory, Littlefield. So I'm going to be running some youth tournaments. I want to see kids in shot clock environments for sure. So, Littlefield, what you got? Same?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I like Ryan. He said the Elam ending. Well, actually, we're doing both up here. We're going to do the TBT ending. So we're going to do shot clock environments and that. Because like you said, every possession is going to count. That'll be good for development up here for our grassroots ones. All right. The last one, loaded one. Sorry. You get to pick one. So 4A, 5A, or 6A, one of those, only one, and you get to pick one lock for, we'll do boys, for a state winner. Yeah, Timmins, you first.
Yeah, a lock.
A lock, absolute lock. You put all your money that this team is going to take it at one of those three.
That's a no-brainer. Go ahead and cheat.
No.
Go ahead and cheat.
I'm going to say Kimball?
That's what I thought you were going to take.
Yeah, I mean, I want to, but like, I just feel like it's funny because you're like, oh, put all your money. So it just scares me.
That's where we at.
Because I watch so much basketball, so I see flaws in every team.
May say different otherwise.
Yeah, that's true.
Kimball. One of you guys took Kimball in the last one.
Because I was going to take Kimball, but Stafford's over there making some real noise too. So it's just, well, that's great about what the playoffs is going to be like. Because it would be Kimball, but then you see the way Houston Stafford's acting, and like it's like, okay, I still would pick Kimball, but it's not as easy as you think. So I'm going to say Kimball, but
would they meet in the final? Them and Stafford, where would they meet? Do you know?
I think they would go final because it would be 2 and 4 and 1 and yeah.
Nice. Hopefully that happens. All right. Okay.
Yes, Allen, who are you saying Brendan would play against? Allen?
He didn't ask me that, Tim.
I did not.
He didn't ask me that, Tim. I don't got to answer all that.
We're a little close to that one. I'm gonna stay away from that one.
Hey, so that one was tough. So he went out on a limb. I'm gonna have to go out on a limb too, because there's 12 champions. I mean, so the percentages are in our favor.
Oh, I know where you're going then. I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Shadow Creek.
I hope. I wish my guy Prez the best, man. I heard this is like the team that, and they've said a lot about Shadow Creek.
This lines up perfectly for him. Timmins and I and the group, we were texting the other day as the matchups kind of started to unfold, and we're kind of sitting there looking at how it lines up. There's a potential Stony Point, Shadow Creek issue.
Antoine's going to call you Friday.
He might.
They're going to give you a call.
That's how you feel. He might give me one of those. He might. But at the end of the day, their body of work, who they have, it would get interesting. But I would say them.
Yeah, okay. I like that.
All right. I'm going Brennan. Done. All right. So I appreciate you both coming on. This has been a great podcast. Again, so much information, nuggets for so many different aspects of the game. And that's what the podcast is about. Just honest conversations, real conversations, just trying to grow the game. So I appreciate you both coming on, especially both from San Antonio, talking about San Antonio basketball. We've had some positive, negative things on all these episodes, but I do believe San Antonio is heading in the right direction. I love that so many people want to come on here and help and just bring light to the game. So again, I appreciate you both. Looking forward to this time of the year. Looking forward to maybe chatting with you both over the postseason, and then obviously hopefully I get to see you guys at the Alamo Dome for the state tournament. But it's this time of year, and for us, basketball never stops. So again, I appreciate you both coming on, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.
All right, be good.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Dropping Dimes podcast. Make sure to go follow us on IG at Dropping Dimes Pod. Remember, each Friday we'll be dropping a new episode, so hit the follow and bell notification buttons to never miss any content. Let's get better together. We out. Oh